The Occult History of World Finance, Kurtis Kallenbach and Jordan Maxwell, paraphrased and transcribed. Money as we believe it to be, and what we think of it as, can ultimately be analogized to the practices of the old Roman Catholic Church. Money at this point is very much like a certificate of indulgence. Money is like a certificate of indulgence granted by the Roman Catholic Church. For a better comprehension and understanding of this financial and legal system with all of its maritime admiralty law mechanizations, you can conceptualize it with these three basic ideas. 1. The United States. The U.S. The United States is basically a maritime republic. It's pure commerce, it's a business, it's an organization or a trade union per se. So U.S., capital U, capital S, the United States is a corporation, it's a business. 2. The United States of America. The United States of America is a country, it's a republic, it's a functioning government with a population. 3. America. America is this third aspect. It's often overlooked or a cause of confusion. America is something completely separate from the systems and regulations of the U.S. or the United States of America. America is a geography term. America is comprised of North America, South America, and Central America. America is referred to as the Americas. Americas, plural, as in all of them. America was actually claimed hundreds of years ago in the 1400s through the doctrine of discovery by the Roman Catholic Church. The doctrine of discovery is about Christianity. They are laying claim through Christianity to all of the Americas so that in the Americas canon law rules. North, South, and Central America are under canon law from the Roman Catholic Church. It's also written in the doctrine of discovery, in summation, basically, that Spain and Portugal are to rule over the Americas. The term America by itself, for all intents and purposes, is identifying Roman Catholic property because all of the Americas are under Roman Catholic canon law. North America has a specific republic within the geography of North America, excluding Canada. That republic is the United States of America, made up of states such as Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, etc. That's the republic, the United States of America. Then within the United States of America, there is a private business that's operating and conducting commerce. This business is a corporation called the United States. The United States is a business. The United States of America is a government. America is Roman Catholic property. Merriam-Webster's definition of money. Money, something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or means of payment such as officially coined or stamped metal currency, or wealth reckoned in terms of money, or a form or denomination of coin or paper money. Ultimately here, money is defined as a medium of exchange. That is what we envision money as and what it's supposed to be. A medium of exchange. Money has to represent a value-to-value exchange. We're all born equal and have a value of 1. In other words, each individual is a separate value of 1, but if two individuals create something, they create one thing together. Or if two individuals want what each other have, they exchange an equal value of what they have to get an equal amount of what they want. So in a value-to-value exchange, each person gets what they want from the other and there is no compromise. Compromise happens when one individual gives more than they are receiving or one individual is receiving more than they give. Compromise can also happen when a third party comes in between two individuals and extracts a portion from both individuals, having them both compromise value to the third party. Our current monetary system is an energy-based system. The productivity and labor produced from your energy is traded for something in exchange that is produced from the energy of whom you used your energy for. So I do something with my energy for you, so you can do something with your energy for me. What has happened in our economic paradigm system is they've created a man in the middle, a middleman that doesn't offer any energy whatsoever to the exchange but takes out. Meaning if two individuals have an even exchange, this third-party middleman comes in and takes a percentage from both individuals. If a third party comes in and claims to require 50% out of the agreement for introducing two individuals, then those two individuals no longer have an even exchange from that agreement because a middleman came into the equation extracting energy out of it. The Federal Reserve is this middleman. So if you're my neighbor and you're a potato farmer and I dig holes for a living and you call me to dig a hole for you, I ask for a bushel of potatoes in return for my labor digging the hole, and it's an even exchange. All I ask for in return for my energy digging the hole is your energy from growing a bushel of potatoes. That's the ideal value-to-value exchange. I dig the hole, you give me a bushel of potatoes, there's no debt in that one-to-one exchange. What they've done is they've created a medium of exchange due to the inability for a barter system to operate efficiently on a global scale. You can't dig a hole for someone in Ireland for a bushel of potatoes here. So there is now a medium of exchange called the Federal Reserve Note. That medium of exchange called the Federal Reserve Note doesn't contain any energy. It is dead. So hypothetically, if the Federal Reserve were to be extracting 50% for the use of their Federal Reserve Note, it would create a problem where, for example, if I dig a hole for $50, which would usually buy me a bushel of potatoes, then an even exchange would be one hole for $50 to buy one bushel of potatoes, because the $50 given to me in return for digging one hole can buy me one $50 bushel of potatoes. The problem is that $50 does not have a full $50 value if the third party is extracting 50% of the energy of that $50. That means if you give me $50 for digging a hole, that $50 only has $25 in purchasing power because of the 50% extraction from the middleman. Consequently, in this situation, the one who digs the hole misses out on 50% of the deal because the Federal Reserve extracted energy from that medium of exchange. So what the digger of the hole would really need, if the agreement is payment of $50 for a bushel of potatoes, is $100 due to the 50% extraction from the Federal Reserve. This consequently affects the one paying for the labor because of the exorbitant charge. So that's what the Federal Reserve is doing. It's being this third-party middleman that extracts energy. They put in nothing but are extracting energy out of the medium of exchange. Because of this, we can actually never truly make payments or pay each other or reduce debt the way the economic system was originally designed. So the so-called inflation so often reported on the news is not really inflation at all. It's just usury. If there was no usury, then everything that is produced would be an asset instead of a liability. For example, with the system as it is, functioning with the Federal Reserve usury, if a state builds a bridge, it can never truly be paid for. Therefore, the state is liable for payments indefinitely. Thus, it is a liability because it's never paid for. Whereas, if there was no usury, it would be an asset serving the community. Because there is a middleman extracting energy from each and every person in the population, the system is collapsing in on itself. It's not sustainable, and once it dies, it cannot be recovered. See Black's Law, 5th edition, definition of money. Money, in usual and ordinary exceptions, means coin and paper currency used as circulating medium of exchange, and does not embrace notes, bonds, evidences of debt, or other personal or real estate. So, according to Black's Law, 5th edition, used by the Bar Association, Federal Reserve notes are not considered money. Basically, money is a medium of exchange everyone has faith in, hence the full faith and credit idea. For this system to continue as it is, the proverbial hole digger has to believe $50 will buy a $100 bushel of potatoes. So if the population loses faith in the value of the system, it will fall apart immediately, but it will collapse eventually on its own, inevitably. When you do something for someone, the word do implies real-time action in the here and now. Right now. You can't do something then, you're doing it now. In other words, everything happens in the present moment. Everything we do in our entire life only happens in the now. We don't do it in the past or the future, only in the now. Everything is in the present moment. The word present also means grace, and the concept of the Christ is the I am, which also implies presence, which means right now. Unless you arrive in this very moment with life in you, you can't do anything. All of the energy used for the labor or creation only exists in the present. The system calls the individual laborer in the present, digging the hole, the creditor. The creditor is the one that actually does the very thing that creates the charge in the present moment. If I dig a hole on your farm, I dig it in the now. When I dig the hole in the now, until you pay me, there is a charge, a positive charge. My energy was used to dig that hole, and in order for me to get back to equilibrium, I have to have that energy discharged. In other words, you have to pay me for me to get an equal exchange for the energy I have given. Until I get paid, I'm in the negative as the creditor. The present moment is where all things are made and everything happens. The present, the I am, not the I will be or the I was, the I am. So the creditor is the Christ. It's the one that pays all of the bills for the simple fact that the only place anything can happen is in the present moment. Well, in 1582, Pope Gregory created another timeline known as the Gregorian or the Anno Domini calendar. The Roman Catholic Church has laid claim to this timeline and all characters born within it. The Anno Domini calendar year is 2023. The Julian calendar, also known as the Gregorian calendar or the Anno Mundi calendar year, is 5782 to 5783. The Anno Domini calendar year runs parallel to the Anno Mundi or Julian sunrise calendar year with a differential of 3,760 years. Each month has a corresponding difference in days behind the Julian calendar date because the Julian calendar year begins in October of the AD calendar and is known as Tishrei in Hebrew. So if I lay claim to a character born to the Anno Domini calendar of Pope Gregory, I'm claiming a position before the present moment while living in the Julian calendar, or the Anno Mundi calendar. In regards to reality and presence, calendars themselves are arbitrary and immaterial. However, the system uses the Anno Domini calendar for all commerce and legal procedures in a 2D fictional realm on paper and computers, and uses the Julian or Anno Mundi calendar to represent reality in the physical 3D realm. If the Julian calendar identifies the present day in real time where the creditor exists, then the debtor is the one who is 3,760 years in the past. In other words, if first, middle, last, the birth certificated afterbirth character born to the Anno Domini calendar lays claim to the hole dug on your farm, he didn't actually dig that hole. I did, as a living man. The character first, middle, last on the birth certificate is claiming my work, so he's actually being extended credit because I work right now, and he's coming behind me claiming my work. He's behind me taking credit for my work. People are unaware of the creditor-debtor split personality. For the most part, these two separate calendar positions are unknown to the general public. There's the real-time, present moment Julian Anno Mundi calendar versus the calendar that's 3,760 years behind called the Anno Domini calendar. The differential between these two calendars is what creates interest. The interest is between the present moment, where the Christ or the I Am does the work and puts the energy into the labor, and the character claiming that position and energy. The character, first, middle, last, owes the I Am. That time between those two positions creates that note of debt. Technically, I get extension of credit because I'm claiming the digging of the hole in the now, and I'm actually getting paid for the hole days in advance by claiming to be someone in the past. Because the present is the future to the past, and the past is the present to the future. This is a very rich and confusing, convoluted concept. Right now is the future to a character 3,760 years in the past. From the point of view of the afterbirth character, the real present moment is in the future. The present moment is me, the biological being exerting energy working a job like digging a hole in the now. And the Anno Domini afterbirth character that we claim to be, that's behind us, is taking credit for that work in the now of the Anno Domini Gregorian calendar world that it's in advance from its position. To that character, the payment for taking credit for that work is a loan. That character, for all intents and purposes, is in debt to me in the present for my energy. That, in this monetary system, makes me both creditor and debtor. This system is designed for extracting the energy used for labor and productivity through the medium of exchange. It requires labor. Labor is the product of each and every one of us claiming to be the afterbirth character that the system extracts the energy from. Our labor produces the products they lay claim to via literary property rights, just as they lay claim to the characters that we claim to be within their copyrighted timeline. They capture our energy needed to sustain the system through the medium of exchange, through the simple mechanism of our belief. It's a belief system. We believe we are the character, and we believe that it's 2023. The Summa Theologica on page 4995, used in Roman Catholic Church doctrine, have texts identifying what the mother and the father bring to life. In summation, it says the father brings form, which is status, standing, or position, or subject. And the mother brings substance, which is the material, or the matter. So in this system, the father is subject and the mother is matter. Subject matter, as in subject matter jurisdiction. So the combination of mother and father together is called subject matter. When they lay claim to our afterbirth material, and church and state are separated through the birth certificate, this separates the father from the mother. The father is the mind and the mother is the body. Separation of mind from body implies mental incompetence, and so does claiming to be a fictional character. Hence, the need for an attorney. The father and the mother position must be brought together to be considered in good standing. The legal definition of good standing is in honor. To be in honor means to be in good standing. good standing is the father's side attached to the mother's side, making you in honor with both church and state, body and mind. You can't choose one or the other without separation. Without subject and matter together, you don't exist. When you claim to be the subject only, you're claiming to be a fictional character because it has no matter. And matter with no subject has no name, so it doesn't exist on paper. This energy system is ancient. It goes back to Sumerian tablets and the Tempest steel augmentation of the revenues. So going back to money in this 2D realm of commerce and the birth certificated character we claim to be that's corresponding with the AD calendar. The reason money today is equivalent to a certificate of indulgence granted by the Roman Catholic Church is this said 2D realm of commerce has in fact been consecrated since 1933 in the U.S. The Merriam-Webster definition of consecrate is to make or declare sacred. In the first sentence of Franklin D. Roosevelt's inaugural address, he stated, "Today is a day of national consecration." When he made this declaration, he created a holy ground. He consecrated a nation made up entirely of holy ground. This consecrated nation represents the land of your soul, the holy ground. An alternate Merriam-Webster's definition of consecrate is to induct a person in parentheses, into a permanent office with a religious rite. The word nation implies a singular unity, not more than one. When FDR says today is a day of national consecration, he is saying today a nation is being consecrated. A consecrated nation was created that day of FDR's inaugural address in 1933. As a result of this, deeds to the holy ground were created and birth certificates were dispensed in 1933. The birth certificate is a deed to the holy ground. Concepts as ancient and convoluted as all of the mechanizations of this system are best communicated, comprehended, and exemplified through the use of symbols. The truth is always revealed through symbolism, regardless of intent. The most important component to this system, as well as to our personal life and progression, is the point of origin. We originate from the result of an act of creation. So one of the oldest symbols identifying God is the circumpunct. Our point of origin is the creation of life or God. The circumpunct is used to symbolize this. The circumpunct symbol is simply a circle with a dot in its center. It represents our point of origin or creation of life, as the circle represents the ovum of a female and the dot in the middle represents the sperm of the male, therefore symbolizing the impregnating of your mother. The circumpunct represents a fertilized egg, symbolizing the act of creation or God. God creates life, and life is formed into matter from the circumpunct, thus making the circumpunct an ancient symbol for God. Life is God, and God is life. The circumpunct is a fertilized egg, and a fertilized egg is an act of creation. The concept of fertilization and creation is an act of God in and of itself. The Roman Catholic Church's definition of a child of God is a work of Christian art. A circumpunct, or a fertilized ovum, is the only place of singularity between male and female before duality. At that point, both female and male DNA share the same time and space. The Vesica Pisces is another symbol correlated to this concept. This symbol is created by overlapping two circles, as it symbolizes the womb of the universe or the vagina. From an aerial viewpoint of the Washington Monument, you can see the Washington Monument is a phallic symbol used in conjunction with the Vesica Pisces to symbolize sexual intercourse and fertilization. The Washington Monument symbolizes the penis, and the Vesica Pisces symbolizes the vagina. The Washington Monument phallic symbol is positioned in the center of where the two circles of the Vesica Pisces overlap. When you look down from an aerial viewpoint directly over the top of the Washington Monument, you will see the circumpunct symbol as well. The legal and monetary system runs in a convoluted fashion through the use of sophist language, making one word carry multiple meanings. For example, the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense is defending against issues of national security. What nation and what issue are they referring to? An issue of national security can be a terrorist or a suicide bomber. However, an issue of national security can also be a share of stock in a company. That's an issue of national security because the financing of the U.S. is the security of the U.S. It's a security for the corporation called the United States. The concepts of child sacrifice, a savior, or sacrificial lamb, and the certificate of indulgence granted by the Roman Catholic Church are heavily intertwined into the mechanizations of this system. So how did they attach the name on the birth certificate used for commerce to me? Here's what happens. My mother goes into the hospital. She's carrying a package in her womb. When she steps from state territory into the federal territory of the hospital, she doesn't stop by customs to declare that package. And when she delivers that package in federal territory of the hospital, she doesn't declare that delivery. When she wraps that package up in swaddling clothes and takes that package home with her, she doesn't declare that package on the way out of federal territory. That package is me, the biological baby. So because of this system, there is no evidence of my existence from the moment I arrive. On paper, I do not exist. So there's no declaration of your existence. There's no record of the biological baby. The birth record is used to mark an event. It's not necessarily applicable to a thing or a body. So the mother leaves behind 3 things in the hospital. 1, the paperwork that has the title first, middle, last. 2, the DNA of the mother that's in the afterbirth. 3, the DNA of my body that's in the afterbirth. When the father's sperm fertilizes the mother's ovum in her womb is the beginning of life. That's when both mother's DNA and father's DNA blend together and eventually becomes unique DNA of the biological baby. Within 3 weeks after fertilization, the zygote is formed, and at this point the unique DNA of the biological baby is created. It then begins the beating of the heart. The DNA of the biological baby is my DNA, a unique mixture of mother's and father's DNA, specific to my physical being. It's a combination of my mother's and father's DNA that belongs to me. That specific DNA is my property. So you also have 3 separate events occurring. 1, the beginning of the new DNA, which is the zygote formed from fertilization. 2, a heartbeat separate from mother within the biological being begins to beat. 3, the baby comes out of the womb and takes its first breath, separating it from the mother. It is the separation from mother that is the beginning of your time in this realm on the earth. That's the beginning of the biological being. The afterbirth fetal tissue material has the same exact DNA as my physical biological body, so to leave behind the afterbirth is to leave behind my DNA, or property. So the biological baby is taken home, and the afterbirth material containing your DNA and your mother's DNA are left behind in the hospital. What's interesting about the mother's DNA is that it is not a combination of mother and father. It is pure mitochondrial DNA. The mother's side of the afterbirth material DNA is born of a virgin because no earthly father is connected with the birth of the afterbirth material. When it leaves the womb, it's considered born alive and is then legally a separate person. That legal person or child of God has no earthly father. It's an immaculate conception. The afterbirth, for all intents and purposes, is Jesus Christ. It's the sacrificial lamb. It's not born of any earthly father, and it is sacrificed. The child sacrifice is the afterbirth. The sacrificed afterbirth DNA is the mother's DNA. The Roman Catholic Church does not lay claim to the product of both mother and father. They only lay claim to the female mitochondrial DNA. Upon fertilization, when the semen enters the ovum, the father's mother's side of the DNA is killed off. In other words, the father's mitochondrial DNA is lost at conception. So the father's mother's DNA does not live through conception. So where does the bloodline from the mother come from? It comes from the mother's all the way back to the beginning of mankind. So there's only one lineage. This means that if you were to impregnate a woman, your mitochondrial DNA will be killed off, so the only mitochondrial DNA carried to your child is the mother's. That's why the church loves the mother concept. This is why they're referred to as Mother Church. They focus on the Mary or Maury side of the equation, the Virgin Mary. Basically, to claim the mitochondrial DNA is to claim the population of the world. The Pope is basically claiming to be the father of everybody in the world for being illegitimate, fatherless children, as the unclaimed afterbirth material character is born of a virgin with no father DNA. The maternal afterbirth is a product of only the mitochondrial lineage of the mother. There is no father DNA in the maternal afterbirth. It is pure female DNA. They don't lay claim to the biological firstborn baby or the unique DNA that's inside of the afterbirth material. The mother DNA in the afterbirth material is the only part of the afterbirth that the Roman Catholic Church is laying claim to. That is the Mother Church. Where the problem arises is the title that is left behind in the hospital in order of first, middle, last, can be applied to both the mother's and the biological baby's DNA from the afterbirth material. It is applicable to the maternal afterbirth or the amniotic sac or vessel I arrive in. The entire banking system is based upon this process, just as the certificate of indulgences granted by the Roman Catholic Church was. It's a sacrifice or a debt-based model. When you have that vessel in your possession, you have that DNA on your side, and you have Jesus Christ. And there is no longer debt connected to the birth certificated person. Remember, Jesus died for our sins. If you know how to pull that vessel into your world, then the Christ is in your world and acts as that sacrifice. Until you have that vessel in your possession, or have the Christ in you, then the Christ is still dying on the cross. In order for the Christ to rest in peace, or to die for your sins, you have to have your citizenship registered to you. That afterbirth material vessel and DNA have to be attached to you again to become whole. If you leave it unregistered and detached from you, it becomes all of the problems in your world. If it is connected to you, then you are saved by it. You can think of it as a ship you find out in the sea of commerce that brings you out of the water. Jesus walks on water just like a boat travels across the surface of the sea. The story of Noah's Ark can also be analogized to this process as well if you interpret the great flood as the sea of commerce, consuming the planet, instead of an actual physical water. The only way you could survive a global flood would be to have an ark or a boat or a ship to prevent you from drowning. The citizenship is to prevent you from being underwater in debt. Your only salvation is that citizenship. When the citizenship is registered back to you properly, then you have your own salvage vessel. You have Jesus on your side, so if you're lost in the underworld, you can get back to earth, or you can have a ship in your possession to travel back to land from the Sea of Commerce. If you fall into the Sea of Commerce with no ship of your own, then you get salvaged by someone else's ship, and then a salvage lien is placed against that action. When you have your own vessel or Jesus on your side, you never have to worry about the commercial world because they'll never have a salvage lien or charge against you. Yet another symbology related to this system is the flags or sigils in the Middle East with the crescent moon and the star. It represents the Madonna and the child. The star is the Christ and the moon is the mother. They say knowledge is power. Knowledge is information. Knowledge is information. If you look up information in Black's Law 5th edition, it's defined as knowledge. Knowledge and information are one and the same. The last, first, middle isn't signed for. Your real name is not signed for. The section at the bottom, the last, first, middle, on the paper in the hospital isn't signed for. At the birth sequence, when mom or dad signs that page on the section connected to first, middle, last, they're signing as what's called an informer or informant. The word informer itself carries the connotation of accuser. It's making an accusation. First, middle, last on the birth certificate is in no way, shape, or form related to my biological father. An author created the title, and mom's mitochondrial DNA created the afterbirth, and the afterbirth has nothing to do with my dad. So when a parent signs that page as an informer, they are accusing that foundling child of being an illegitimate child or a bastard. It's an accusatory signature. The word information is the only word they need to bring you into the courtroom. What the Crown and the Bar Association use to get you into the court is called an information. An information. First, middle, last is an information. That's the very thing they need to bring a charge against you in their private court system. So your mother signing as an informer provides information that gives intimate knowledge to your existence because that information is tied to your DNA from the afterbirth material. The information is the knowledge of your essence, the most intimate knowledge about you that exists. So the Roman Catholic Church now has all of these deeds. They have the paper that identifies you through your DNA, and if you don't recollect it and bring it back into your world from theirs, then it remains in the public. It's like a public easement. If you abandon your DNA to the public, you become a charge to the public. Instead of running away from the name on the birth certificate, we need to learn how to reclaim our lives from the church by having the citizenship registered to us. It's like an orphan child who is adopted by the church, and until it leaves, it's always under the care of the church warden. If we choose to live as the character instead of taking it out of the orphanage, then we have to live under the stipulations of the foster parent, i.e. the Pope. The reality is this system is all mechanics. When you go back to the zygote at the point of the creation of you, to claim that moment is to have your paramount claim on your existence. By claiming that moment, you also claim all subsequent events, meaning everything that you produce through your DNA, which is the capital and labor of your existence, is now your own industrial property instead of theirs. When you claim the DNA, no one else can make an alternate claim. The whole idea of a trust to be used for your benefit from 1666 is a falsehood. A trust does not exist when there is a singular owner. Realistically, you and you alone are the only one with a legitimate claim to your life. With only one owner, there is no trust. If there's more than one owner, then there's a potential trust that could exist. Otherwise, there can't be. So the solution is actually very simple. Claim the circumpunct zygote moment. Claim your point of origin where your mother and father's DNA come together and begin to form your unique DNA. When you do that and reattach that vessel back to you, then your body and mind are no longer separate. The father's side of the equation is the mind and your government, and the mother's side is the body and the universe that needs to be governed by the mind. Where the zygote receives the energy to generate the first heartbeat is the source, and all of the cells in your body are the constituency of your existence. And the government is in the mind, in your temple. To be self-governed is to know your sovereignty only extends from your head to your feet and is bound within your flesh. To have an external government is to be ruling over others or being ruled over. The Anno Mundi calendar year today is 5783, making it 3,760 years ahead of the Anno Domini calendar year of 2023. The Anno Mundi calendar is also known as the Hebrew or Jewish calendar. According to this differential between these calendars, on paper, those using this calendar are in the future to those using the AD calendar by almost 4,000 years. So the legal and economic system can be manipulated as clearly as it is, because the AD calendar is the calendar of commerce used for all business, dated 3,760 years in the past, to be controlled by those living in the Anno Mundi calendar year in the future. On paper, their calendar is in the future to the AD calendar. All of the intricacy and confusion of this system is metaphorically the future manipulating and controlling the past by people claiming to be a character on paper for business in a timeline dated almost 4,000 years in the past, to the people who created that calendar dated in the past used for commerce.